I always look at us like I'm the science experiment and the scientist at the same time. So like, not everything is so true. Like not everything works for everybody the same. And so here's the information, take what you need, leave the rest, and then go experiment, like see what works for you.
Hey friends, welcome to the Dr. Axe podcast, and I'm your co-host, Dr. Motley. And today I have a very special guest, a friend of mine. You know her. She's awesome. LeAnn Rimes. We want to say thank you for joining us on Dr. Axe podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Well, whenever I approached Josh and approached the team about having you on, because you have been posting such great quality info about health, about your healing journey, about how you approach and see the beauty in other people. And that's one thing I really appreciate about you, and how you uplift people. And when people, even on your concerts, when we're going to have you talk about what you do, and most people know, but when I see your concerts and I see people, they literally have smiles on their face, and you're the kind of person that just literally brings a lot of light. I don't just say that to make your head get bigger, but guys, if you know LeAnn, she is just a big ball of light. So we're really, really happy. And many of you may know already what she does, but she is a singer-songwriter. She is an entertainer, if I can say, performer, but she has true heart. So LeAnn, you have been in this industry for a long time, and I love for the guests to talk about the way they want to move through the interview. But as you have progressed, as you've grown in this industry, let's talk about how you view like your own personal mindfulness, your own personal health. Give a little brief description of yourself, if you don't mind, and of course. Tell us about life and what's going on.
Life and what's going on. Well, it's interesting. I mean, you're coming to me with these questions at a very pivotal time actually in my life, because, like you said, I've been performing and touring, and in the music business since I was 13. So it's actually been 25 years since my first song was released, just this past July 9th, actually. Wow. So yeah, big milestone, which seems kind of nuts, to think that I'll be 39 at the end of the month. So it's kind of weird to think that I've been doing anything for 25 years consistently. Yeah. But at this point, I've with being off the road, which I was off the road, like everyone was kind of obviously in lockdown for these last 16, 17 months. And that was a time for me where, first off, I've never had that kind of time off the road since I was 13. And so it was a time for me to kind of recalibrate my nervous system, and which was so shocking. It's shocking when you traveled all over the world your whole life to be in one place for that long. Yeah. And then not only be in one place, but be confined in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. So the first 6 months of that were, I would say, pretty tumultuous in a lot of ways internally. Yeah. But then, I guess I hadn't realized how much had unraveled until recently, when I went back on the road. We had 4 shows this past July and last month. And all of a sudden, the first show I did, I walked out and it was so jarring. The whole experience of getting on a plane and flying to a new town and then driving somewhere and getting on stage in front of thousands of people. And it was so much of it I realized that I really appreciated and still loved. And then so much of it I was like, this is not normal. This is not humane. Some of this is unhealthy. And so it's so interesting that you're asking me about my health journey at this point, because from my whole life, I haven't really put my body and my mind and my overall health before the career and whatever else may have come before it, other people's needs, other people's desires of me. And this has been kind of the first time where I went, whoa, I have a different perspective. I got to sit home for 16 months. And how do I now find this balance for myself, that not only am I feeding people and bringing out the light in them, but is this nourishing to me, which is not a word that I would normally use with touring, but it's how do I create a nourishing space for myself? So it's I have no answers for myself just yet, but I have a lot of questions, and I'm just allowing myself to kind of sit in those questions and find how I want to create this next part of my journey for myself.
I love the way that you say, like, when you created, I'm asking, when you were that young and you had that much responsibility and that much pressure, then you have a moment of in your life, a respite in a way to like gather yourself. Now, when we talk about like health and perspective, when, like, let's say triggers come up, you say it's so jarring when it comes up. Have you found that a lot of the accumulated memories or thoughts, when you're younger and you had so much going on and you had time to look back at it, we have talked about, you and I before, about how we feel it in our bodies and such. When you go through coming back on the road, have you been able to analyze a lot of what I know you said since you were young, like how it's coming back full circle in some aspects, like memories and stuff.
Yeah.
What are the things that you have found to help calm you down? Things that you found peace with? I know it's still an ongoing journey, but have you?
It is, yeah. It is. The jarring piece for me was the biggest piece was to recognize how much of my nervous system had started to unwind, and because I still struggle with anxiety. I mean, like, who lives in this world at this moment and doesn't at some point? Right. Like, if you're dead, if you're not experiencing some form of it. Yeah. And so when I went back out, I recognized how triggering, like how much my nervous system had to like turn on. And because I've been at home and I'm thinking, I'm still anxious at times and all this kind of thing, I was thinking, I didn't think I had unwound it as much as I had until I went in that situation. And I was like, whoa, like everything has to be on. It's like fight or flight, like perform. And that's when I recognized, like, oh, there is a really big difference and things have shifted for me. And I don't want to go back and prime my nervous system like that all the time. So how do I learn how to work with this situation? I don't know yet. And that's been kind of I'm one of those people. I'm a Virgo. I like lists. I like answers. Like, I wish I could tell you what those are at this moment. But right now it's been kind of that uncomfortable place of like sitting in the question of what's gonna nourish me here. So, I've started to play with, like ideas of how the way I structure and how I book my shows and, how many shows I do back to back and like all those kind of things. So it's really about kind of finding, I think one of the biggest things for me is just being able to verbalize it, like when it's happening, and not try to wall myself off for the performance need of the situation. Allowing my humanity more and more into that space of entertainment. I know one thing that's really come up for me lately is I don't want to entertain anymore. I want to connect. And I think there's a big difference there. And that was really the one thing that I heard so loud and clear. It's like, I don't want to entertain. Like, I want to connect with these people. And so what's that look like for me? I started my own podcast called Holy Human, and that's been like my way to connect. That's been my way to connect with people in that way or in a different way. And I'm like, how do I I'm like playing with the idea of like, how do I bring all of this to the stage? Like when I get to perform. And so it was almost like the first show back was like stepping back in time 16 months ago. And it's like, if those 16 months I would have been performing, so much would have changed. Like I would have changed the way I do my songs, and would have had a different show. And we kind of went back plugged back into 16 months ago. And I was like, oh, I'm not in the same energy anymore. So it was, it's been so interesting and fascinating to recognize. I think we're just in a timeline, like in a new frequency where like, you can't just plug back in. It's not going to work.
It doesn't. And I think that when you say like, whenever you, when you can try to connect your humanity, like you say in that sense with you're not just trying to entertain, but connect. I think that whenever we go into that state, if we're in fight or flight consistently, and you have taken the time to heal and you're working at it. And I say that's why I tell my patients, it's an ongoing process, but it's like cleaning out those old emotional closets. And at times I think that we never realize after we're trying to neurologically clean out those connectivities we've had from the past, that we never realized how tired we were or are right now. And I think that admitting to yourself that there is fatigue there, and even to talk about like in say Chinese medicine, we love talking about that, and frequency medicine, like whenever like the kidneys are our big energy storehouse, but it's hard in this day and age. What we're talking about, there could be quite a bit of fear and the unknown, especially just not even what's going on the outside, but also like you say, like if you're cultivating yourself saying, where do I go from here? And that's a huge fear thought that comes in the kidneys, but the kidneys are meant to process that. But whenever we are, that many years you've been through it, I would wonder, I'm like, how much fatigue is built up in the kidneys. And now you've actually taken a step back to look at it and how much it's cultivated, which I love the fact that when many people out there listening would say, well, where do I start? But the beauty of it is, like you just said, I don't know exactly where to start, or I don't know exactly where to go, because that's the beauty of how you cultivate the yin and the yang. It's like you go with the flow in some fashion to see where it leads. With that, whenever you see that your body is trying to heal, we talk about fight or flight. As I see patients when they try to heal from fight or flight, those saving graces, like you say, connectivity and communication, on a frequency level, I know that you want to change, like you say, you want to morph into like connectivity with people, which you do so well. Have you seen, like with your career, like you were saying, you're entertaining, and divine God used this time for you to like readjust? I know it has to be hard, like to try to make new decisions. Was it a bit of a jolt when you finally made a decision, or you're thinking, I need to connect with people more than just entertain? How big of a jolt was that? I know you've told me about it, but did it really rock your nervous system like that?
Yeah, it's a huge, there's so much fear that comes up in that, that's like, if I'm not this one version, and by the way, like, I mean, in 25 years, I've been multiple versions of myself that people have connected with. And it's so interesting to see, the way or when people have been connected with me. Some people, I'm still like 13 years old to them. Some people like are now connecting with me through my podcast and don't even know my music, like might know one song, like so many different versions of me. And so to allow this latest version of me, whatever that looked like, or the version of me 16 months ago, to die and to, be rebirthed in a new way, it's always scary, right? Like, cause we get safe in that last, version of ourselves. And, sometimes just to ask the questions, like if people thinking like, where do I start? A question is a really good place to start, because sometimes just asking the questions that's the scariest part of it, because we don't even want to ask the questions because we don't really want to know the answers. So like, and so for me, just to ask the questions have been so liberating, because it opens up a whole new possibility or set of possibilities or infinite possibilities. Like, so that's been a big step, is to go, oh, what else could be birthed from this place? And that was just to really admit, like, oh, I'm sick of entertaining. And by the way, that's not just on stage. That's like in every aspect of my life. Like, where have I put up a mask? Where have I, where am I taking care of someone else's needs before mine? Where am I not being honest with my needs? Like, to me, that's a version of entertainment.
Wow. I'm writing that down. That's good. No.
It is. To me, that's a version of entertainment. We all ultimately are entertaining one another instead of connecting with the real human, the real holy human. That's why I called my podcast Holy Human, the real holy human underneath this ego structure that we've created. And so that was my trigger. The stage was my trigger to see that in a larger light for my whole life, not just the stage.
And as you cultivate that, and as you've seen that it's moving you and morphing you, I'm asking, like, and giving it, you've inspired many people, and you created the podcast Holy Human. And like, I do love the fact that when we all most of us talk about humanity and finding out, like, when there's the ego facade, and I've been studying and we're trying to read a bit more about it, about connectivity, with, they say, like, higher mind. The higher mind, they say, is 99% of us. 1% is the physical representation of what's going on in the higher mind, connected to God, divine. And with the idea that we're holistic individuals and we're not just like small reductions in our pieces, I think the greatest struggle is that when you ask the questions is a way that you're actually trying to not delete, but calm down the ego and say, no, I'm actually trying to ask questions to have a reconnecting piece to where I can actually filter in information. Because in some aspects in psychology, we know about this, like in spirituality and even in neurology, they would say that if you can actually understand that there are frequencies and there are energy that is around us that can be placed within the body to actually meet the demand or the problems within the body, that we're so closed off. And it sounds like when in Holy Human, is that one of the aspects, the many aspects of the podcast where you're trying to get people to connect and trying to reduce, the ego interference. And I also want to know what are the spectrum of people you like to, to see and talk about with certain health conditions.
Oh my gosh. So Holy Human basically for me is it's WHOLLY because it's the whole of who we are. And I think there's the holy aspect, HOLY of us, and the human aspect. And I think we've looked at humanity. We've looked down upon humanity. We've looked down as like this body, this vessel, like our humanity is dirty in some way. And it's like, I feel like when we talk about humanity, I'm talking about, it's the best version of us. And there's nothing dirty about us. You think about, I know that's a piece of, when I was raised at Baptist, Southern Baptist, and it was like, the idea of original sin and all of these things, like we think that there's something unholy about us. And so it's, for me, looking at the mental, physical, emotional, spiritual aspects of our totality, of our creation, of who we are. That's what I like to dig into on the show. It's like, it's all about me on my journey. Like I'm asking the questions right along with everybody else. And, I'm living some of those answers and just as I think I know what I'm doing, like it changes the next day. So it's like, how can we all be in the questions together and create a community where people feel safe and that, I know I, as a celebrity, as LeAnn Rimes, like have connections to people that a lot of people might not have connections to. So it's bringing these people to, to my listeners and the information. And, I always look at us like I'm the science experiment and the scientist at the same time. So like, not everything is so true. Like not everything works for everybody the same. And so here's the information, take what you need, leave the rest, and then go experiment, like see what works for you.
See, I love, I'm right now that you're both aspects in the science project per se, like,
Yes.
When we talk about like the holistic approach, and we talk about body, mind, spirit, biochemistry. I think that one of the things that that's intrigued me, that kept my passion going, like you say, with seeing how it all intertwines. And I'm asking you, is that when you say you want to connect with people, I think it's a really, really relevant question to ask about communication. And when we see that the body is communicating constantly, like within itself, like, organs are literally speaking to each other. We speak to other people with the vibrations that are given off of our body. And the hardest part in our day and age is that we have lost like the ability to sense communication within the body. And like you say, but trying to be aware of all aspects of our body just only gets us in touch so that we can make wiser choices, like and diminish the ego. When you are inspired do you find this, like when you start to be more connected with yourself, it just makes you more passionate about like new ideas come into play, especially with health? That's what I find. When you started to think, I'm going to start Holy Human, like, did it just like, was it like this slow moving thought or idea, or did it all of a sudden just go, hey, I know I need to do this because I feel this download?
Yeah, I have downloads all the time, and there's a different. I don't know if people are feeling this. I know I'm not the only one, so I'm sure a lot of people are feeling this. There feels like there's like two energies in me. One's pulling me one way, and one's pulling me the other. And there's like this downloads that'll come in, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's such an inspired idea. Like I'm totally down with that. And then there's this other energy that's like, but everyone will think you're stupid and you don't have anything to say. But like, that's really like my internal war, which I'm sure a lot of people are feeling. And it's like, which one's going to win? And, I have a great support system around me, and the idea was totally inspired. And I had so many people around me that were like, you have to do this. Like, we're not letting you get off the hook. Like you're gonna start where you are, and we're going to all learn together. And my first episode, we're on the second season actually right now, but my first episode of first season was solely me, and it was about fear. And I wanted to start from a place of true authenticity of like, okay, people, I am terrified of this. And here's what I'm learning through this process. And here's how I'm dealing with my own fears. And, I think one of the greatest things that I've learned about fear is, once again, communication. Like, once I speak it and I allow that fear and shame and whatever else is sitting in there out of my body, it's like, oh, there's spaciousness to like go try the thing that I'm scared of. And so, that was where I wanted to start. I'm like, if I'm going to start this, I'm going to start it in the most honest place. And and you talk about that communication. It's like, it was a new way for me to communicate. And, I've used my voice for a really long time in one way, in one aspect. And this was like new pieces of my voice coming online, and like just us now talking, like this so inspires me. Like, I'm so lit up by all of this because it's, I'm proud of myself and my own journey. And I love that I get to share this piece, and I love that I get to connect with people on a completely new level outside of music. And it's exciting.
I always think that it's really great when you say it's a new way to communicate, because whenever I would say that your body gets trained through your past experiences, and yes, there's hard experiences that put you into this position you are now. I think that the one thing, like listening to your podcast, I think that truly this sounds like the way you communicate, and you say you're open and honest to express your fears. This truly is a side note, but you had the best voice for podcasts. I'm just gonna let you know that right now. You do.
Thank you.
Soothing voice. B, it's like, we talk about resonance and sound. It's like when you speak the fear. You're not not trying to even perpetuate, but the open and honesty is to allow that memory space in your body to actually open up. And the beautiful thing is you are reaching out to individuals, and they understand it, and it resonates. And people, do you find this? I find that whenever people say they think of the word resonate, and they just think, oh, it just means like, it's resonance, you're vibing with me. I was like, no, literally the healing in your voice can match the frequency of somebody else's trauma, and they can feel reinforced by you in a positive way. And I think that when we speak of fear or anxiety or stressors, I think it is one of the best healers is to actually voice it into the environment around us. As you've seen this develop, like season 2 is coming up, the first season, did you find more healing in your heart just by speaking your fears and speaking and getting these people? Did you feel like lighter?
Oh, totally. I absolutely do. And, I still get scared when I go in to do a podcast. Luckily, it's been on the moments where I've actually known my guest. And so I'll text them before and be like, I am really, really like freaking out right now. I know I'll be fine once we get on. But like I said, it's kind of my go-to, like true honesty. And once you just that honest, people are like, yeah, I'm in it with you. And some of those have been some of my favorite podcasts because I've been able to be just transparent. And that transparency, I think, I've heard a friend of mine named Lewis House. If anybody knows who Lewis is, he's amazing. Lewis has always said that, that kind of vulnerability is a superpower. And I totally agree. And I've been leaning into that more, and that being like, it's my go-to superpower. If I could have a superpower, which people ask me all the time, if you could have one, what would it be? it used to be like being invisible, because I could go kind of anywhere without anyone seeing me. And now it's like, it's almost funny because it's almost the opposite. With that vulnerability, it's like you actually are being completely seen. And so I totally would go with that superpower these days.
With vulnerability. No, I get it. It's like the idea when some people would think that vulnerability is actually a bad thing, because many people have been hurt so bad and they built walls. And literally, to me, when you're vulnerable, it just shows you that you have reduced the ego, and you actually are trying to communicate the whole body with God and with higher mind. Even in Chinese medicine, when they talk about vulnerability, like my mind goes back to the idea of the small intestine and the heart, the fire elements are really involved. And it's sad to say that we live in a fight or flight area in our lives, like we're always in fight or flight, that they say it actually raises the heart fire element to the point, because our hearts have to beat harder, our cortisol levels have to rise. So we have to be careful of creating an idea that if we're vulnerable, like it's going to cause us pain. And so we'll do every thing we can to shield it off. And it's hard to do it in this culture. I know that's just what we're talking about now. Like with vulnerability, with letting your guard down, I find it with most patients, but I'm asking you, that have you found that more people are just so inspired because there's somebody that in your celebrity status has been able to identify and not let people see a facade, like, because you don't see that many times with celebrities and such. But how's the reception been like with podcasts? Has it been like crazy good?
Oh, it's been amazing. Yeah, people are, like I said, I have like this totally different connection with people who haven't really connected with my music maybe in the past, and it's just like they're inspired by my journey and are connecting with what we're talking about. And yeah, no, it's been a beautiful, beautiful journey, and I'm loving it. I really am.
I love it. I was thinking about with the podcast, and we talked about other things, like the other things you're venturing into. And I saw, and this is a side note, guys, but I saw you like you're making candles. Are you still? You're like you have.
I am.
And I'm telling you, I've smelled the candles, had them, and they're amazing. And I know this is a little bit. Hope it's not too off track, guys.
No.
I did see too that when you're making the candles, and she's making these things herself, putting her spirit.
I am.
This. But I've seen that you sing over them too, and I think it's a really important aspect of it. Can you explain, like, is it like singing vibration over it? Is it trying to like trap your frequency of who you are into the work of candles?
Yeah, I think I think learning and reading about frequency, I was just so fascinated by it, and I remember reading about the water experiment and thinking, if chanting and beautiful sounds can create these crystalline, structures and take dirty water and make it clean, when you're connected through what I feel like I'm most of the time connected to when I sing, through my heart, like I love fragrance. Like fragrance is, it's like music to me. Like I'm so emotionally moved by fragrance. So love creating it. And I was thinking, well, if this can be done, like if everything's a frequency, like my pure intention and frequency can be put into these candles and it can be captured like as they're solidifying. So, and I know for some people that's like way out there, but it's definitely possible and true. And so, once again, one of those downloaded moments where I was like, this sounds absolutely insane. People are going to be like, what's she doing singing into candles? But it was just, I was so moved by it and wanted to do it. So I started creating chants that I would write, that I would sit in meditation and they would come to me. I would write, and then I would find like, what frequency do I want to use for this candle? And so, and what do I want this candle to, to connect with in people? And so my friend Daryl and I would create these like drone kind of frequency pieces, and then I would chant over them, and we would record those first, and then I would chant over the candles as they were drying. And then I would also play through the drying process. I'd play the chant that we recorded. So from that, I was like, why am I just creating these chants one by one? I should be creating a chant record. So I actually created a chant record from just creating chants for the candles. And so therein lies like the whole process of it. And I absolutely love it. I've actually drugged my husband into it now. He's like all in the candle making process. So it's the two of us like go out and create these candles in our guest house. And it's such a passion project. It's really fun. I love it.
Like whenever you talk about like how frequency gets trapped in a material, for all of you guys out there listening, like we think it may sound unusual, but there's a great research by Japanese scientists, and one's like Secret Life of Water. And what LeAnn's referring to is that if you take an electrical charge and put it into water, this is the nerd section. I hate to be like this.
Thank you. You can explain it way better than I can.
But you can take an electrical charge or microcurrents of electricity, and you can actually place it into material like water or into any type of liquid format. But the water is really, really shapeable, they say. So you can actually take H2O molecules and you can actually change not the actual molecular structure, but you can change the shape of it. So what they're saying is that if you, they find like when people do like Gregorian chants or they do certain songs at, churches, or like when you do a certain note, consistently, remember we're like mostly are made out of water. And so they find that whenever you they would put like a word or a like the frequency of a good classical music over like a vial of water, they would freeze frame it right when it froze, and they would find that there's perfect crystalline structures that were formed when that frequency was pressed through the water. So you can actually take sound and actually infuse it through a water medium, and the water will take the characteristics of whatever you're pushing through it. That's why, like LeAnn and I are talking about, when you get around somebody and they may have a sickness or a toxicity, or they may have a negative attitude, and that vibration hits your body, and a lot of the water will actually, if you're around them a lot of the time, could change the shape of the water that's inside you in the liquid. So speaking life.
Oh, that's so interesting. I guess I have thought about it that way, but I'm glad you reminded me of that. Interesting.
Isn't that really amazing? Like, whenever people think that's unusual, like, not at all. I think that the more the research is coming out to show that people can literally change the molecular structure of the fluid that's in your body from the vibrational tones. It's really, really it's interesting. It can be, I don't say scary, it can be like alarming, because then people understand why other people may make them feel not the best. But then you think you can always turn around and use it for life. It's like whenever you think you're seeing over the candles, it's like, wow, you're infusing that. And I think that when we talk about frequency medicine and vibrational medicine, that's where the voice comes into play, like with your podcast and how you sing and you're actually connecting with people. Do you find that as these things are coming out, you're doing the candles, you're doing the podcast, you're doing, you're connecting with people, it's always morphing, but has it seemed like it's opened up different ways that, like touring life and such? Like you say, you're making those decisions, but do you feel like a calmer energy is coming towards you in this arena? Like whenever you feel that way?
I do. I know that I'm wanting, or I guess I can see when the energy is not healthy and not calm. Like, I know how to create, from a different place, from a really connected place. And I know that it's coming out through my music too. Like, I'm just finishing up a new record, and it's a very, very different album, I find, for myself. It's very spiritual. But it's like, I feel like I'm making music for the times that speak to what we're going through, to support people and in their own awakenings. And I'm supporting myself. Like, as I'm singing this music, it's like, I have all of this information and lessons for my own self. And so, and it was one of those albums that just kind of came through, and I'm like, I can't ask, like, I don't ask where this goes, like what format it's going to be played on. Like, it's just like, okay, I know I'm supposed to create this. And so it was kind of around the same time that my chant album was coming through. So was this record. And it was kind of like, I felt like a kind of a long form, like real song, long form chant album. It was just kind of an extension of it. So yeah, it's different for me. So I find that what I'm trying to move toward, and I think because of the old habitual ways, I think everyone will find this, the old habitual ways, the way we think things have been, the way that our industries, whatever industry you're in, has been, we think that, just because the new way of being and doing isn't there yet, that it's impossible. And I'm really trying to trust like this joy, and have that move me in the direction of what I want to do. And, like I said, I'm not thinking about where this is going to be played. I'm just thinking like, whoever needs to hear it's going to hear it. And trusting that more and more.
Yes. It's like when you say, like, when you mix or you combine vulnerability, and I say, like, and actually being really honest with yourself and getting the ego out of the way will always open up possibilities. And it's shown, like, even in research, like, we know that's proven fact. I know that, like, just lightly knowing you, but I would say, like, you can see, like, there's more of a piece about you that I think is really, really great. And I think that you purvey that so well to other individuals. With everybody that's out there that's listening, I know that they're going to go and jump on your podcast, and they're going to go listen to it, and they're going to hear you're great. When
I've been working on my I've been working on my kidneys. That's why.
We talked about that.
It's so funny. We have, yes. I love all the videos that you've been putting up online, because they've been so wonderful. And I've got my massage star, and I'm working on my kidneys. And then I've been really kind of connecting with my body more and more. And I think that I've been finding peace within that, as to, is to really like, I have a whole morning routine where I like now, I think that's kind of been my last thing that's come online as my own body of dropping from here, like down into here and connecting with myself. And so like, I feel like I'm now moving some energy that might not have been, I might not have been able to move before or had, had the ability to connect with. So yeah, I'm grateful to you for everything.
Come on, girl. It's like, I appreciate
No, it's true.
But like I know it's like when we talk about connectivity, the thing is, like I say to individuals that like work on like acupressure points and such, like if you had kidney and you had some fear from the past and things that you've been through when you're in your younger career or life, it's like, it's beautiful to me that you can increase, and people say, when we say energy, we talk about chi, we're talking about bipolar electrical signals that are running through your muscle fascia and through your tissue. And the thing is like, when you can increase energy where the organs, they all have their own form of enteric nervous system. They all have their own, in a sense, mind, and they connect with each other because they're all trying to push and pull. But it's great that when they do start to find balance, like one organ has been so beaten up over the years and you start to nourish it and it knows that you're trying to encourage it. It's like, hey guys, I actually got enough energy because I'm getting some, acupressure. I'm getting some things. I'm doing, I'm listening to good music. I'm singing good music. I've been astounded and amazed, honestly, like when individuals just do these points on themselves, how much they'll notice that they sleep better at certain times of night. They don't wake up in the middle of the night. And especially like nightmares go away or bad dreams when they have kidneys getting better. All that to say, I think self-care and letting yourself be honest about how you feel. Like I'm in this state, and I always tell patients, let's find the organ that's the most infected, or I say imbalanced,
right.
Worked on that, and see if you can actually open up communication in the body with those organs with each other. And you're living proof of that. And I just wanted to really appreciate, like putting out the information of health. And I know that you put good information about your own health journey and about mindfulness and about how to be really conscious in this day. But I want you to so when is your next episode? Tell people about your podcast when it's out, or like what avenue do we get to hear your podcast at?
Yeah, it's you can find it wherever you stream. It's with iHeart every Monday, and we have 12 episodes per season. We're actually on the third episode right now with Dr. Judd Brewer. So we're talking about everything with anxiety, which is, I know, a huge piece for everybody. And mindfulness. And so Danielle Laporte was on before that, and Ethan Cross, who wrote a book called Chatter, which is fantastic. And so, we have some great people coming up. So people, come on over. We just started season 2, and you can start binging.
That's going to be great. I love when
you have to come on. I wanted you to come on and spill it all.
We'll talk about anxiety whenever you want me. But I'm here. But I just want to say thank you. And Dr. Axe, we thank you for being here. Like, are you going to write a book soon or anything like that?
You know what? That is definitely in the cards at some point. That's one of those other inspired ideas that I'm trying to drag my little self into you can do this. No, I've actually started it. I started it the other day. I have an idea, and I know what I want to do with it. So yes, that is coming. And I love that I'm saying that right now because I'm saying it has to come now. Yes, it has to come from feeling
like there
has to.
Something like that coming. But guys, listen to LeAnn's podcast, Holy Human. And she's got great information, and I've enjoyed the podcast I've heard. You. And I really appreciate coming on. And I know that people may know you, but for some people who may not, I'm just saying, what is your Instagram or your to follow you, or what are you on Instagram or Facebook? Can you let the people know?
Yep. LeAnn Rimes, Rimes, not RHY. I'm not that kind of rhyme. LeAnn Rimes, Rimes. That's just me you can find me anywhere basically. And LeAnnRimesWorld.com is my website. So
that's cool. So we so appreciate it again. And guys, we're all about all things health here on Dr. Axe Podcast, and so is LeAnn. So we just want you guys to live inspired. We want you guys to be vulnerable and ask questions. So again, everybody, thank you, LeAnn. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
And catch us next time on the next episode of the Dr. Axe Podcast.
This podcast is for information purposes only. Statements and views expressed in this podcast are not medical advice and have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. In some cases, individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein.